Everyone, welcome to another Underrated Film Saturday, and today I thought it would be interesting to briefly address a underrated animated film that came out a while back, actually, and is one that has sort of existed through my childhood. And as you can see by the title, that is Land Before Time, or The Land Before Time. Usually people just like to say Land Before Time for some reason. Only because I think that makes the title shorter. But I think this one is fairly overlooked when it comes to animated films. It's one of those where we usually don't talk about, similar to like how nobody really addresses The Secret of Nim. But I think this film, in my personal opinion, is sort of, again, superior, I think, than to The Secret of Nim, only because I feel like I identified more with the characters. I thought there was a little bit more development with them, and I felt the relationships were a lot stronger, and therefore I felt more invested while watching the film. So I think that's just something that I should just kind of get out of the way as in regards to just my personal opinion. But I think this film has been overlooked, similar to like how a lot of Don Bluth films are overlooked, in the sense that it came out during a time when animation wasn't necessarily popular, and it was before the Disney Renaissance, so we were kind of in this stage of nothing being really created. And when there was something that was created, it got its relevance to the point where when it was released, and then afterwards kind of just died down. And I think Land Before Time was definitely one of those films. And also, not only do I think this film got overlooked, not only just because of the time period, which is similar to the reasons of Secret of Nim, but also because Don Bluth, as a animated director, has only made few films that have been considered success stories or films that actually turned a good product. And again, those were probably, the biggest three are probably American Tail, which is I think one that I think most people recognize, Land Before Time, and Secret of Nim. But I still feel like that Land Before Time is one of those films that gets, again, overlooked because it was a Don Bluth creation, and since it was a Don Bluth creation, it doesn't get as much exposure as other Disney films do or other DreamWorks films do. So it was, again, this animator didn't have a whole lot of success stories, which is unfortunate, but that was really the case. I mean, when you look at his film library, those are probably his three strongest works. And when you don't have a successful line of films, usually you don't get sort of remembered again. DreamWorks has had a line of successful film projects. Disney's had a huge successful library of films. Don Bluth unfortunately didn't have that. So I think that's really why his films sort of got put under the radar when it comes to animated films, because he didn't really have a whole lot of successful projects. And when they were critically acclaimed to be strong, they kind of were maybe successful during the time of release, but then again, they don't remain in the conscious memory because he didn't maintain his brand. So I think that's really something that is important to note when you look at sort of Don Bluth films, is that he didn't really have a huge amount of success stories, and when you don't maintain the brand that you have, unfortunately goes by the wayside. Which again, he tried to mimic Disney several times afterwards, after these films that he made, and weren't that successful because he couldn't do what Disney did, because he tried to be like their brand, and as opposed to building up his own identity. So yeah, I think that's just something that's a very important aspect to note when it comes to this film and why it's overlooked. But basically the film revolves around these kid dinosaurs, the main character being Littlefoot, and the other ones being Sarah, Ducky, and Petrie. And they're all different kinds of dinosaurs. So Littlefoot is a long neck, so to speak. Sarah is the Triceratops. Haha, Sarah, makes sense. I'm trying to remember what Ducky's dinosaur, as a dinosaur, what she is, but I can't necessarily remember. And Petrie's the one dinosaur that flies. Again, I'm not really good with dinosaur names. I know T-Rexes and I know long necks, and and Triceratopses, and that's pretty much it. But pterodactyls, I think is what the Petrie is called. Pterodactyls? Yeah. Could be wrong though. I apologize, it's been a while since I've taken dinosaur classes. But basically, these 4 dinosaurs ultimately end up getting together and going on a journey to the Great Valley. Now, what is the Great Valley? Well, it's supposed to be this place of paradise, because basically the time during when they are living, the environment is changing, and you'll see how there's like an earthquake within the film. There's predators like the T-Rex, and in this case, I think he's called Sharptooth. But again, there's all of these different things that are basically coming after all of the dinosaurs. They're having drought, they're having earthquakes, they're having, it's pretty much not a good place to be in at the time of these dinosaurs' existence. But what they do know is of a possible place of salvation, and that is the Great Valley, or at least that's what it's called within the film. And that's really ultimately all of the little kids' dinosaurs' goal, is to, and for some of them to even reunite with their parents, because you'll see how the parents get separated from the kids and they have to kind of go on their own and try to ultimately find the Great Valley. But that's really the heart of the story and all of the obstacles that they end up going through as a result. And Littlefoot is really our main focus because he is the main character of the story and he sort of drives the story. But what I do like about this film is that all the little kid dinosaurs have like unique little personalities, and they kind of carry the weight of the film, which I think is something hard to do because usually, even within kids films, kids aren't really necessarily the main characters, or if they are kids, they grow up, so to speak, or maybe they're in that puberty stage, but they're not really, just kids. And again, dinosaurs is pretty much a rare thing. Only seen it in Jurassic Park pretty much, and this is probably the other film that did focus on dinosaurs. So, again, something that I think is important to note. But basically, this film is designed to have sort of tragic and triumphant moments. You'll see how there are certain points where the characters are sort of lifted out of their bad circumstances through their own willpower, and there are times where tragedy falls upon the characters. And you'll sort of see this and how it unfolds within the beginning of the film. And I don't really want to give anything away, so I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen the film. And the reason why, again, like I feel like it to be one of my favorites when it comes to Don Bluth is I feel like it's very human, it's very childlike, there's a sense of innocence to it, while also establishing the sense of fear. I think, again, there are things within this film that do sort of resemble what we would consider within a Disney film to maybe occur. But the way he executes the film is he does it in sort of a unique way, to the point where he sort of gels it out well. So you see, even though there are just Disney aspects to it, there's still things that he sort of does that makes his film rather distinct. And I think he did a really good job in balancing that kind of act. And I think it was difficult for him because he was originally a Disney animator. So it is sort of hard to like distance yourself from that brand. And I think what he did successfully with The Land Before Time was create this kind of balance and sort of gel it out well. And I think he took a lot of inspiration from films like Bambi, from Dumbo. You see sort of the resemblances that come out of those films that are sort of inserted as part of this film. And there's this sense of optimism while overcoming certain obstacles, and I like too that sort of nature is kind of the sort of enemy to them, similar to Bambi, although they do kind of insert the T-Rex a little bit as so to speak, sort of a villain. But really, at the end of the day, it is a story of survival. It is a story of trying to find paradise. The music's very nice as well. I think it adds a really nice touch to the story. And the thing is, too, is I didn't feel like it was trying to be too odd. I didn't feel like that there were any characters that felt sort of out of place. And again, I think it gelled kind of the tragedy with the lightheartedness well. For example, in American Tail, if you watch it again, it's pretty depressing. But when you watch Land Before Time, there is this sort of mixture, I felt. Yes, it starts off as very tragic within the beginning, but you do see how the characters kind of grow with one another, and they share some sort of lighthearted moments, and they also share tragic moments and moments of fear as well. So again, it kind of knew how to gel out these two elements, and I think Don Bluth really did get a lot of inspiration from Disney with this work in particular. But again, he did it in his own way. He didn't try to completely go full Disney and try to capture the brand fully. He took what he saw was good from Disney, and he incorporated it into his film to make it sort of his own. Because you'll see how the animation is, it's a lot darker than Disney's. The characters are usually not the typical of what we see of Disney, although they have similar maybe personality traits. There are just these mixed in things that I think there's just parts of it that you can tell he was taking inspiration from Disney, but at the same time he wasn't trying to copy them. He wasn't trying to be formulaic to them. And I think that was a good thing, and I think he knew how to do it really well. And that's why I think it's The Land Before Time stands out to me as opposed to the other two films where I felt he was going more for Don Bluth. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, there's just parts of it where I felt, could, again, like The Secret of Nim, I felt like certain things were there that were unnecessary, and there wasn't a whole lot of structure with the characters. So again, I think it wasn't as strong. So when I look at Land Before Time, I felt like it was sort of on this playing field where he was taking what was good that he found within Disney and doing his own thing with it. Which is, I think, what a lot of animators do, is they take inspiration from someone else, but they make it into their own thing. Similar with DreamWorks, they probably borrow a lot from the Looney Tunes, but they do it in a way that's unique to them and sort of insert it as part of their brand. So I think, and again, I think that's just something important to note. But I think that's really all I can say about The Land Before Time. It's pretty straightforward. It's one of those kids' films where, again, there may be some dark moments here and there, but it has this Bambi-esque kind of quality to it. So if you enjoy Bambi a lot, I think you can find a lot of enjoyment from this film, because I felt like he was trying to kind of get that similar tone. Um, and it's kind of nice to see dinosaurs. However, I refuse to discuss the sequels because, again, those those can all go into basically the bad category of animated sequels that we usually end up seeing. But as far as the first film goes, I think it's his strongest. I think it's the most enjoyable, and it's the one where I got the most enjoyment out of watching. Because I felt like it gelled the certain elements out well, and I felt it felt like it was trying to be its own unique thing. Whereas the other two more successful films I felt were a little bit too much of they just have this Don Bluth style that's just doesn't appeal to me as much. Again, I don't know if it's the animation or it's just the way the stories are constructed and put together, or just maybe the odd parts. Like, there's just odd parts within Don Bluth films that I just go, okay, why is this happening now? What's going on? Why do we need to have this, in here? Whereas I didn't feel that way with The Land Before Time. I felt like, okay, this scene's happening for a reason. So yeah, it's just one of those things where I feel like, it's just, I think, a personal preference. But I definitely do enjoy this one. I think it is a worthy recommendation if you are interested, and maybe want to revisit your childhood. But yeah, I think that's really all I can say, though. But if, again, there are any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.